She had only $8 left in her pocket, the last bit of money she could stretch through the week. But when she saw him, a lone biker leaning against his motorcycle in the dim light of the city streets, she didn't hesitate. Maya's choice to help him, simple and small, would spark a chain of events that no one could have predicted. In a world that judged her for the color of her skin, she found herself facing fear, suspicion, and unexpected consequences, all in the span of a few days. What happens when courage meets injustice? How far can one act of kindness really reach? Watch her journey unfold as tension, emotion, and hope collide in ways you'll never forget. Hit subscribe now to follow every moment of Maya's story and join a conversation about courage, empathy, and fighting racial injustice.
It was a quiet Thursday afternoon when Maya counted the last of her money, $8. Not much, but enough to get through the weekend if she stretched it carefully. She worked 2 part-time jobs, juggling shifts just to keep her small apartment and make sure her younger brother had what he needed. Life hadn't been easy. Being young, black, and trying to survive in a city that often overlooked her felt like walking a tightrope every day. Still, she kept moving forward with a kind of quiet determination. People in her neighborhood knew her as someone who would stop to help, even when it meant giving her last dime. That day, as she walked past the familiar streets lined with graffiti and worn-out shops, her eyes caught something unusual, a figure leaning against a motorcycle, leather jacket worn, eyes sharp but tired. Something about him felt different. He wasn't just another face in the crowd, and she sensed, without fully understanding, that this moment could change everything. Maya didn't hesitate. She had learned early on that hesitation often led to regret, but little did she know that a single, seemingly small act of generosity would set off a chain of events far beyond her imagination, events that would test not just her courage, but the very society around her. And while Maya had faced struggles before, nothing in her daily grind could have prepared her for the lessons she was about to learn about kindness, judgment, and the surprising ways people can come together in the face of injustice.
Maya approached the lone figure by the motorcycle, her heart pounding with a mix of curiosity and unease. He wasn't imposing, at least not in the way you'd expect from someone dressed in leather and surrounded by chrome, but there was an intensity in his eyes that made her hesitate for just a moment. Still, she did what she always did, offered a smile and the little she had. $8, the last of her money. He looked at her surprised, almost disarmed by the gesture. Then, before she could say more, a group of bikers rolled up behind him, engines roaring and echoing through the narrow street. Maya froze. She hadn't expected anyone else, and suddenly the neighborhood she thought she knew felt like unfamiliar territory. Her chest tightened. But before fear could fully take over, the man nodded at her, a silent acknowledgement of gratitude, and she walked away, thinking that was the end of it. That night, though, reality hit harder than she imagined. On her way home from work, she noticed the stares, harsh, lingering, and full of judgment. People whispered as she passed, their eyes darting with suspicion. She'd always known the world wasn't fair to someone like her, but the weight of it hit differently when she was already tired, already stretched thin. The city, with its bright lights and crowded streets, suddenly felt colder, harsher, more dangerous. Over the next few days, small injustices piled up like storm clouds. A store clerk questioned her too harshly when she bought groceries. A driver honked aggressively when she crossed the street, as if she had no right to be there. Each incident, seemingly minor on its own, gnawed at her, a quiet reminder that her skin made her a target, even when she did nothing wrong. Yet through it all, she kept thinking about the man on the motorcycle, the one she'd helped. Why him? Why that moment? And more importantly, had her act of kindness meant anything in a world so quick to judge her? Then, just when it seemed like the days would blend into each other with nothing changing,
something unexpected happened. Maya received a message, an invitation to meet again. But this time, it wasn't just the man alone. Something bigger was coming, something that could either change everything or crush her hopes entirely. She couldn't know yet what it meant, only that the next step would test her courage in ways she had never imagined. And as she prepared to face this unknown, the question lingered in her mind. Could one small act of generosity really make a difference in a world so determined to keep people like her down?
The day came faster than Maya expected. She walked toward the meeting point, heart hammering, palms sweaty, every step heavy with anticipation. Around her, the city seemed to hold its breath. The streets were quieter than usual, the usual chatter replaced by an almost eerie stillness. And then she saw them, hundreds of bikers, engines rumbling, lined up like an army of steel and leather. Her breath caught. Could this really be happening? Before she could react, she noticed the glances from bystanders, some curious, some suspicious, others openly hostile. Whispers spread like wildfire. Eyes followed her every move. She was suddenly hyper-aware of her skin, her clothes, the smallness of her figure in a sea of roaring motorcycles. The fears she had carried for so long, being judged, dismissed, targeted, washed over her like a tidal wave. And then it happened. One of the bikers stepped forward holding a package. Not just any package, a life-changing gift, the kind she had only dared to dream about. Relief, shock, and disbelief collided in her chest. But even as the crowd cheered, Maya couldn't shake the tension lingering in the air. A world that had often tried to break her now watched as something extraordinary unfolded. She felt every stare, every judgment, every past injustice in that moment magnified, but also, for the first time, tempered by hope. Her emotions teetered between fear and exhilaration. Could one act of kindness truly ripple across a world so riddled with judgment and bias? Could this moment actually rewrite her story, or was it just a fleeting reprieve in a lifetime of struggles? And as she reached out to accept the gift, a silence fell over the crowd, every eye on her, every engine briefly quiet. In that heartbeat, Maya realized nothing would ever feel the same again.
Maya held the package in her hands, her fingers trembling, and for the first time in weeks, a sense of calm washed over her. The bikers' engines roared once more, a thunderous celebration of something bigger than herself, an acknowledgement that small acts of courage and kindness could ripple through the world in ways she had never imagined. Yet, even in this moment of triumph, she felt the weight of reality pressing back. The streets outside were still the same streets that judged her, the same city that often turned a blind eye to people who looked like her. But something had shifted. Maya realized that courage wasn't just about survival, it was about choosing to act with integrity even when the world seemed determined to break you. Her $8, a seemingly insignificant amount, had sparked an event that reminded her and anyone watching that human connection and compassion can defy the harshest of prejudices. The gift she received was more than just material. It was a symbol, a reminder that even in a society riddled with systemic injustice, moments of empathy, recognition, and solidarity still existed, and they mattered. And while Maya knew that discrimination and bias would not vanish overnight, she also understood that her story could inspire others to act differently, to see beyond assumptions and stereotypes, and to recognize the humanity in everyone. So she asked herself, and now we must ask too, in a world that often judges too quickly, what small act of courage could you take today to make a difference?